Hello and welcome to today's Share webinar with Optica Technologies. A modern automated approach to backup and recovery is within reach. Presented by Sean Seitz, VP of Technical Services at Optica Technologies, Katie Shaw, Enterprise Account Executive at CSI International, and Glenn Baker, President at PSR Inc. My name is Bristol Cook, and on behalf of Share Headquarters, I would like to thank you for joining us today. Share is pleased to continue our webinar programming with this educational event. Please note that this webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Share website. All attendees will be muted throughout the webcast, and we encourage you to submit questions through the Q&A box on your webinar toolbar. These will be addressed at the end of the presentation. I would now like to turn it over to Sean. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Bristol. Thank you for hosting us today. We really appreciate that. And I am pleased to be joined by our partners in CSI International and PSR, two wonderful partners of ours. So pleased to be joined by Katie Shaw and Glenn Baker as well. So in terms of the agenda today, I just want to quickly run through what our presentation will entail. I'm going to start by introducing the companies quickly and providing an overview of our partnership, the three companies. We're going to talk about a poll question early on in the presentation today. We're going to ask for your participation and with the poll question. And then Glenn Baker from PSR is going to discuss the results with you and basically customer myths and misconceptions around ZVSE. He's going to add a lot of his decades of experience with the VSE VM customer base. We're going to overview the solutions, the Optica ZVT as well as the CSI BIM Epic tape management product. We're going to talk about what is usually top of mind, I should say, for customers that are migrating to a virtual tape solution from either physical tape or an older virtual tape system, and that's data migration. How are you going to get me from A to B successfully? As well as DR testing. How am I going to do my DR testing? How is it going to improve the efficiency of my DR testing? So we'll talk about those topics. We're going to talk about some use cases, which is always interesting, I think, for the audience. We have two use cases that have a combined use of our solutions. And then we're going to talk about the solution benefits, a summary of the overall benefits of the solution. And then we're going to take questions at the end. So again, as Bristol said, please submit your Q&A or your questions through the Q&A box, I should say, and we'll address those at the end, time permitting. Okay, so in terms of an overview of the companies, first PSR. PSR was founded in 1981 as a VSE systems programming support company, and they've evolved quite a bit over time. And today they're focused on mainframe solutions as an IBM Platinum partner in the US, providing DR solutions and client mainframe infrastructure as a service solutions, and they base their virtual tape offering on the Optica ZVT. So we're excited to be a big part of the services that PSR offers around mainframe infrastructure. Optica Technologies has been in business for 53 years, and we've been exclusively focused on mainframe for the last 30 years of those 53 we've been in business. We have been a strategic partner to IBM Z and Poughkeepsie since 2002, when we contracted with IBM to provide channel protocol conversion solutions to mainframe customers. So we are the folks that developed the SCON to bus and tag converter, subsequently the FICON to SCON converter, and even FICON to bus and tag, believe it or not. We still support hundreds of these products globally, and so there's a strong likelihood that you've used our channel conversion products in your data center. If you were able to avoid Optica's converters, you were doing very well as you modernized your System Z environment. So we enjoy that partnership with IBM that is still in place today, and it's a big part of why we entered the virtual tape space as well. With all the conversion products we have in the field, mostly connected to tape products or products that emulate tape, we became extremely familiar with tape emulation, tape operations, and so it was a logical step for us to get into the virtual tape space about 6 years ago, and that's when we announced the ZVT family with IBM Poughkeepsie support. CSI International is the original developer of the TCP IP for VSE and an IBM business partner since 1995. They're experts in providing VSE and ZOS solutions, software solutions, addressing systems management, data management, production control, automation, and security. Their dedication to customer success is echoed in the mission to help customers succeed, which is delivered with every single project that they touch. So I guess in summary, this partnership is unique. And what makes these three companies' partnership so special, I think, is that we have almost 120 years of combined experience serving the mainframe environment and specifically VMVSE customers. We've got deep skills across all three companies and a commitment to the VSE customer. That's very rare to have three companies that are committed and dedicated to that market space. And we definitely share a mission of unparalleled service and support. That is extremely unique these days, to have similar cultures across three organizations that make customer experience paramount. We all lead with customer experience, and that's why we've been in business for so long, all three companies. So I'm very proud of this partnership, and together we deliver solutions on premise at your location. We can do it fully hosted at PSR or as a hybrid in the case of PSR's DR as a service, where there's equipment in your production data center replicating to PSR's DR data center for DR as a service. So this is where we wanted to take a quick break, and we want to present a poll question. So Bristol's going to pop up a poll question. We'd ask for the entire audience to have a look and participate. And then I'm going to turn it over to Glenn Baker of PSR to discuss the results and to talk about some of the myths and misconceptions of VSE. So the question is, when considering a move to new mainframe virtual tape system, what are your challenges or concerns? And we'd encourage you to select one or more than one. Select any that apply. And then while you're doing that, Bristol is going to give you a few seconds to do that, and she's going to pop up the results. So go ahead and respond. And then I'll turn it over here next to Glenn to discuss the results.
Thanks, Sean. We'll wait for the results to come up. Okay. Well, it's pretty split out across the board here, so I'll kind of go down through these, and we can go on to some myths and misconceptions out there. But the number one out there, and number two would be resources, but we can't afford a virtual tape solution. And that really is one of the myths that are out there. It's surprisingly lower cost, and it compares favorably to physical tape. Even physical tape that might be on third-party maintenance. And if you factor in, tape management charges, archive costs, was typically with companies like Iron Mountain, it compares very favorably. So we've certainly worked with many VSE customers implementing Optica solutions. And the first questions we're asked is, how does it compare to what I pay today? And typically, it's customers who've been running on the same tape solution for 10, 20 years. So it compares very favorably to those solutions. The bandwidth is one of the questions that comes up. And many think it's expensive bandwidth, dedicated bandwidth. And that's really a misconception. It really depends on what your recovery point needs to be. At a bare minimum, if you're replicating your DR backups offsite within 24 hours, that's probably what you were getting before. And this is probably going to build upon that. And it's really many options of bandwidth, but we're finding for many of our VSE customers, they don't require dedicated bandwidth. They do an IP or a VPN type connection, and that has worked just fine. They were able to send their backups offsite through replication to us or to others, and they don't need dedicated bandwidth for that. In terms of sizing the requirement, that's always difficult, when in the VSE world, because many times tools are only supporting ZOS. We've had no trouble doing that. we've been able to work with Optica doing many tape studies, and we're always able to size these things working with them. We find the team at Optica to be very knowledgeable of the VSE area, and have never had a problem working with that. I'll skip down to we're locked into our DR provider. That was another hard one. Well, one of the things I'm always surprised with when it comes to current DR providers is most clients, or many of them, don't understand what their contract is, what's included in it, and when does it end. And many times there's terms and conditions in there that make it very difficult to work with a DR provider. The PSR DR service that we do is written by systems programmers, people who are used to going out and doing DR tests, and it's very flexible, and makes it very easy to schedule tests. And you need another day or work with us. It's very flexible in how we work with our customers. But we've been known to provide options where we could implement the Optica solution. Tapes could be replicated to our data center, and if you're still with your current DR provider, for the interim, we could still cut tapes if needed, to send to your DR site. So what I would say about the overall solution, it's very flexible to deploy as you need to deploy it. It works very well in small VSE environments, and we just had a very recent scenario with a county government where they had a real problem. They couldn't go to their data center due to the current COVID crisis, and we were able to quickly implement Optica solution replicating to our DR site, and it solved their problem of all their physical tape management, which was the only reason they were going into the data center, and completely removed that problem for them. Sean, with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Perfect, Glenn. Thank you for that insight. And I can add to your comments that we've had the pleasure of working with the PSR team for quite a few customers across the board of their services, including on-premise, so virtual tape solution completely at the customer locations, as well as fully hosted solutions in the PSR data centers, and then DR as a service solutions where the customer has production ZVT in their own site and replicates to a PSR location. So again, they made it look easy working with them, and I've seen quite a few happy customers over the last year and a half working with PSR.
And Sean, I should have added that we've worked super well with CSI with all these migration projects, been able to make these, moving customers off physical tape libraries, all different scenarios, and, we greatly appreciate our partnership with CSI.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that and actually highlight their environment a little later in the presentation. So good point, Glenn. Thank you. So I wanted to move to an overview of the ZVT family of products. We feel like we offer the most extensive and flexible offering in the virtual tape space for mainframe customers. There's 3 models in the lineup, and so I'm just going to move top to bottom and give you a flavor for each one. First, the 5000 iNAS. This is our flagship product. This is the most modular and scalable solution we feel in the industry. You can go from 24 terabytes of usable capacity all the way up through multi-petabyte systems that are highly resilient and highly available. So it addresses small all the way through the largest, very modularly, so you can actually invest in a system and grow it as you need to grow. As I mentioned, HA architectures, you can design a system with the 5000 iNAS that offers no single point of failure. It also offers very powerful data resiliency technology such that you could lose multiple disk drives in a single storage node, or even an entire storage node within the system without impacting your tape operation or your data. So it can be designed to be extremely resilient. It is the most fully featured, offering throughput from 1,000 megabytes a second up through 8,000 megabytes a second. Deduplication, data deduplication is standard. That's a very powerful technology that's part of the iNAS system. Compression is standard as well. I'll talk a little bit more about replication and that's available on the INAS system and the WAN optimization of ISN replications. I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next couple slides. Moving to the Flex system, this is really an industry unique product because the Flex system allows you, the customer, to leverage your own open system storage capacity for your mainframe virtual tape storage. So we combine what we call our 5000 Flex virtual tape node with your NFS or fiber channel storage of any brand. So that's what makes it industry unique. And this isn't for everyone. However, if you have an investment in a strategic investment in a certain brand of open system storage, any brand, and you have extra capacity, you can leverage that capacity connecting to the 5000 Flex engine that's then attached to your mainframe for your mainframe virtual tape applications. So it's quite unique and cost effective if you fall into that category. Another neat thing is it allows you to leverage your existing replication infrastructure. So if you're already replicating your open systems data from production to DR, you can leverage that same infrastructure for the mainframe virtual tape app using the Flex system. It can also be designed in an HA format, so you can have multiple virtual tape nodes for resiliency. So it offers some nice flexibility if that fits your profile. And then finally, the 3000i. This is what we would consider the entry-level product. It's a self-contained 2U appliance. It has onboard storage, onboard RAID 6 internal storage. It comes in 3 capacity options: 8 terabyte, 16 terabyte, or 24 terabyte. That's usable capacity. Those 3 usable sizes translate to effective capacity after compression of 32 terabyte, 64 terabyte, or 96 terabyte based on a 4-to-1 ratio, which is achievable with the powerful algorithms that we use for compression. So a mighty little box. It's perfect for replacement of physical tape or older virtual tape systems, especially if you have fixed growth. You're not growing a tremendous amount. This is a real simple solution, easily implemented, easily managed, and perfect for replacement of physical tape and older virtual tape systems. It's of course compatible with all 3 operating systems, specifically VM and VSE as well. Okay, I wanted to talk a little bit about a few more details on the virtual tape node itself. And this is the common denominator across all 3 of those models I just showed you. So the virtual tape node is the same technology regardless of whether it's the 3000i, the 5000 Flex, or the 5000 INAS system. Okay, on the left is a few specifications, then we'll talk about a few of the feature highlights. So per virtual tape node, you have 2 FICON interfaces. And of course, you can scale your system as you see on the right with multiple virtual tape nodes, but each one has 2 FICON interfaces. We license each virtual tape node with either 1664 or 256 virtual tape drives. That allows us to tailor the system, your needs and requirements to the price point. So if you don't require all 256 virtual tape drives, you'll get a lower price point for the 16 or the 64 virtual tape drives that we license the box for. Operating systems, we support all the above. Storage connectivity varies by model, as we just talked about. The INAS is integrated with 10 gigabit NFS storage. The 5000 Flex leverages your storage, whether it's 10 gig or 1 gig NFS or 8 gig fiber channel storage. And then the 3000i is the self-contained all-in-one that has RAID 6 local storage. Okay. We emulate 3490 and 3590, either independently or at the same time, depending on your requirements. As far as feature set goes, the graphical user interface is very efficient and very slick. It tends to be a strength of the product. I'm going to show you a little bit more about the GUI in the next slide or two. Anything you can do in the graphical user interface, you can do via CLI or JCL as well. Okay, so if you're a CLI person, you have full control and management via that methodology. Every system supports up to 32 virtual tape libraries per virtual tape node. Each system supports more than 1 million virtual volumes. That's what our largest customer has at this point, more than 1 million, a little more than 1 million. We've tested in the lab well beyond that. Hardware compression is standard, as I mentioned, in every virtual tape node. Each virtual tape node offers about 1,000 megabytes of throughput, so we don't throttle back performance based on a license similar to what IBM does on the 7700. We do it by virtual tape node. So if you have a single virtual tape node in your system, you're going to realize approximately 1,000 megabytes a second. As you add virtual tape nodes, that continues to go up. We offer multi-level data integrity checking. So this is a peace of mind feature that we've added. This allows you several different options to validate that the data remains valid that's parked on the disk. So you can do it as soon as the data is written and the tape is unmounted. It can do a background check where it validates the data against the CRC provided by the mainframe. So it will validate it as soon as the tape's unloaded, or you can set it up, or you could set it up to run as a background task on the entire library on a scheduled basis. So for example, if you have archive data on your ZVT system, you want to make sure that it's going to be good in 10 years or 5 years, whatever the case may be. You can validate periodically that that data remains valid by running a background check against the entire library. So that's, again, a peace of mind feature that we feel is important for you, the customer. Replication and virtual tape node replication is available on every model and offers cloud support. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a slide or two here. We also offer what we call hostless migration. So this is a license-based feature that allows you to migrate from a legacy system, whether it's physical or any virtual system, directly between the legacy system and the ZVT. The data does not have to flow through the mainframe. So you do not have to use mainframe cycles to do tape migration. So this is industry unique as well. And there's an entire webinar that you can link to from our website. If you want to learn more about the hostless migration engine, go to our website and you can find a webinar, recorded webinar on the hostless migration. So we're proud of that feature. We also use non-proprietary AWS file format. Many of the providers in the virtual tape space do not. They use a proprietary file format. We have an open standard AWS file format. We feel it's your data. You should be able to access your data over time with or without a ZVT engine. So we feel that's an important feature. And then, of course, the investment that these three companies have made in each other is tremendous. And we have each other's products in our labs. We work very well together with similar cultures with a customer focus. So we're proud of this partnership. All right, I mentioned the GUI. So I wanted to just give you a flavor for the GUI, how easy it is to use, some of the features and tools that it offers. This is, we just selected a page as an example here. You can see the 3 tabs across the top, management, maintenance, and status. We happen to be in the management tab highlighted in yellow on the left. That presents a set of unique buttons down the left side here. So each time you change between these tabs across the top, of course, you get a unique set of functionality down the left. So the management section of the GUI is going to be where you go to set up the system, configure the system, and execute scripts, etc. Okay, so you're going to do most of your setup and management here from the management tab. The maintenance tab is going to be where you manage your microcode, you manage licenses. So that you're not going to be accessing the maintenance tab a tremendous amount, but for example, when you're updating microcode, you do it from the maintenance tab. And then the status tab allows you to manage and monitor port status, device status, for example. We have a performance section where you can monitor the performance of the ZVT end-to-end. Okay, so I'll call your attention to the right side of the GUI screen here. You can see that the ZVT status is in green. It says started in green. That's what you want to see. If there were to ever be a problem, that would be a red arrow, or sorry, error, I should say. It would call out the fact that there was a problem, and you'd see it in bold red, which isn't going to happen very often, but you will always be able to monitor your status on every GUI screen on that right-hand bar there. And then the last thing I wanted to point out here is you can see in this drop-down menu that is highlighted here under Actions, there's a tape management page there that you can select. And essentially what that offers is a view of the tape database. So the database of the tapes resides on the ZVT, and in the tape management screen, you can sort the database, you can filter it, you can search it across many criteria. You can set up custom views across a lot of different criteria. So that's a very powerful tool that customers tend to appreciate. At a glance, you can go to the tape management screen and find specific tapes. You can monitor replication status. There's a lot of functionality that you glean from the tape management page. Okay, we offer quite a few different replication options. In the graphical example at the top here, we're showing you an iNAS system and a Flex system using virtual tape node replication or VTN replication as well as ISN replication. So just to point out the quick difference, VTN replication, the intelligence resides on the virtual tape node, and that's why it's available across all three of our virtual tape models, VTN replication. ISN replication, by contrast, the intelligence resides on the storage node, on the intelligent storage node, and therefore it's only available in the 5000 iNAS because that's the only node with external storage in the ISN. But in terms of a contrast, the VTN replication offers three modes, two asynchronous and asynchronous. And you can set up asynchronous by VolSeer or VolSeer range, or you can set it up by library as a background task. And then synchronously, of course, this is going to be used selectively because it's going to impact job time. But if you have a need for a select set of tapes to be immediately replicated to the DR side, you can set up synchronous replication for a specific set of volumes. The advantages of VTN replication are that you can do it on a VolSeer granularity basis, single VolSeers, VolSeer ranges, and also that it offers cloud support and storage vault support. And what I mean by that is you can use any third-party cloud gateway as an NFS mount to our system and use VTN replication to move select volumes to the cloud. Okay, so a lot of customers are taking advantage of this already. Also, you could use it as a storage vault, meaning any NFS storage node could be the target of VTN replication. So if you wanted to just have a storage node for a second or third copy of your data in a remote location, you can use VTN replication to do that. You wouldn't have to have a ZVT system on the other end. And then ISN replication, the really neat part about ISN replication, again, that is between the intelligent storage nodes of an iNAS system, is that it is WAN optimized. So that means it replicates only the changed deduplicated data in the file system. So if you have low bandwidth links between prod and DR, ISN replication is really efficient and would be recommended for you. Okay, I wanted to ask Katie Shaw from CSI to step in, if you don't mind, Katie, and just give the audience some highlights of your BIM Epic product.
Sure thing. Thanks, Sean. I'm Katie, as Sean said. Quick background on my end. I've been with CSI in the account management sales arena for 19 years. This coming August, and Juan and I are very glad to be a part of the webinar today. You can see on the slide, but to go over and recap some of the points. You can see by automating resource allocation, BIM Epic improves tape and DASD utilization without additional overhead. BIM Epic allows rerouting of temporary data sets to virtual disk, which saves time and reduces your I/O. Not listed on the slide, but also amongst the many other features included with Epic, the online BIM Epic catalog management system also manages, secures, and reports on all aspects of a system's storage resources. Auditing features include dataset status and usage reports, basic job accounting, activity logging by programs and partition, and tape exception reports. And as well as the features that you can see in this chart, we also provide a simple 5-step process to migrate from CA Dynam to BIM Epic. The conversion is very straightforward and seamless. We've done it many times. And not to mention, well, actually, most importantly to mention in this webinar, as stated in this slide, BIM Epic is fully integrated with Optica ZVT, with wonderful effort from the original and current developer of Epic, Juan Allegra, who is also with us on this call today.
Thank you, Katie, and I wanted just to echo your sentiment. We've certainly enjoyed our partnership with you and our developers working together over the last several years to integrate our products and enjoy a nice joint customer base with you guys. So we appreciate it. Thanks for your insights on BIM Epic. Okay, so to summarize this section, the delivery of these combined services with ZVT as the virtual tape system has gone very well for the three of our companies. And we have a process that we repeat every time that flows for the customer from kind of discovering the requirements all the way through the implementation and delivery of the services and turnover of the solution, starting with design assessment. So we work very closely with PSR to identify the requirements of each individual customer, because every customer is different. So we like to start with that discovery, whether it's a full tape study or something that's a little thinner than that, but discovery of your requirements is the most important starting point, and we do a good job working with PSR to do that. Once we design the system and make a recommendation based on the requirements we've gathered, we review that with the client, and we help work with them to determine the best solution to propose. And again, that can be a completely on-premise solution on the customer locations. It can be a DR as a service or a fully hosted solution. Obviously, PSR, as a premier partner of IBM Z, they deliver a lot of mainframes and disk solutions as well that can be part of that. And then, as I mentioned, delivering the turnkey solution is the most important value for the customer. From planning and installation, configuration, implementation, migration of your data, and then, very importantly, education and skills transfer. So all those services are delivered with every project. And of course, BIM Epic, being fully integrated with ZVT, can be included in the solution if needed, if required. Okay, I wanted to pause here and actually throw out a second poll question. So Bristol, if you don't mind popping it up, there you go. So again, we'd ask for your participation. I don't think any of us could have predicted in January that if you told any of us then that we would have a global pandemic that forced essentially all of us to work remotely or mostly remotely as IT professionals, I don't think anybody would have believed that. And yet it happened almost overnight. And so this poll question is interesting along those lines. What impact has the recent requirement to work from home had on your tape operations and the ability to recover in the event of a disaster? So this one is just select one of the answers, whether it's a major concern, a concern, or not a concern at all. So please provide your feedback, and we will talk about the results. It'll be quite interesting, I think. We'll give you a couple seconds to submit your feedback. Okay, so thank you, Bristol. It looks like there's kind of an even distribution. I think mainly folks believe that it was a pretty big concern or an average concern, equally distributed between major and not a concern at all. But most customers, I guess, then you could say 70, what is that, 70, my Miami math says it's about 78%, think it is somewhat of a concern or a major concern. And I guess that's what I would have expected, especially from a shop that is physical tape, that's still operating with physical tape. I think there would have been quite a challenge to proceed with normal tape operations, given the need for physical humans to handle tapes and move tapes around and ship tapes, and certainly in the case of a disaster and needing to restore, that presents problems. So I think as expected, that's a concern, and another reason why the efficiency of virtual tape makes so much sense, and even the DR as a services offerings and fully hosted offerings from PSR make a lot of sense to customers these days in light of the COVID situation and what will be the realities going forward. So thank you for your participation in the poll question. Okay, so I wanted to spend just a minute on tape migration. I mentioned in the outset that always top of mind when you're talking to customers about their virtual tape requirements is, how are you going to get me from A to B? How are you going to get me confidently from what I have to the ZVT system? And I break it down into two kind of categories, the migration of your data. The first is that what we call the natural migration phase. And this is quite simply, you're configuring the new system online to the mainframe. You've still got your legacy system configured and active, and you've got unique device ranges set up on the ZVT, and you're going to simply point your new scratch mounts to the new technology. So in the case of backups, for example, over the period of 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, all of your backups are naturally migrated to the new technology. So that tends to be the biggest chunk of a user's data, generally speaking. Not always, but generally. So that natural phase is handled through just pointing your new scratch mounts to the ZVT. Quite simple, right? The other category of migration has to do with your archive data, your fixed content data that you have to hold on to, right? That has to be moved somehow. So what we wanted to highlight here is that in what I'll call the data copy phase, you can use BIM Epic. So if you're a BIM Epic user, you've got a utility called TSID DTD. It stands for Dataset to Dataset Copy. That utility is resident in BIM Epic and gives you the ability to set up a copy job whereby you create a list of data sets that you want to migrate from your legacy system to the ZVT, and you use that list as input to your TSID DTD. Okay, and that copy job is going to mount the source tape on the legacy system, mount a scratch tape on the ZVT, and then read it from the old and write it to the new. Quite simple, right? And that process will continue. So you can use BIM Epic and the copy utility to migrate your archive data. So that's one example. Another example, same thing. If you don't have BIM Epic, you should, but if you don't, you can use Ditto. So I think most of you as a VSC or VM user have Ditto. So you can use Ditto to copy your archive data. The only difference between using BIM Epic and Ditto is that with Ditto, let me back up quickly, you'll notice with BIM Epic that the new VolSeer range on the ZVT has to be different. Okay, so you're going to go from an A00 range to a B00 range when you copy the data sets over using the BIM Epic utility. With Ditto, the ZVT renames the virtual tape to match the VolSeer in Vol1. So effectively, you're cloning the tape if you're using Ditto. That would be the only difference between using Ditto versus BIM Epic to migrate your tape. But both of them we've used a lot of times for what we call the data copy phase. So most customers can be migrated with a combination of that natural approach with a data copy phase using one of these utilities. Okay, DR is the other thing that is top of mind when a customer is moving to a new virtual tape system. How am I going to do my DR testing? Am I going to do it more efficiently? How are you going to help me do this? Well, virtual tape offers a lot of efficiency over physical tape when it comes to DR and recovery, or disaster recovery. So here's an example of your production environment. You're replicating between, in this case, 3,000 eyes between prod and DR. You have a production file system that's replicated and becomes the prod replicated file system on the DR side, okay? And so when it comes to DR, what we call one-click DR testing, it's as simple as when you're ready for a test, you literally click on the import database button in the DR ZVT GUI, and the DR ZVT will import the VolSeer database from the replicated file system, and it's ready to use within a couple of minutes after the database is imported onto the ZVT. And after it's imported, you're ready to go. You bring the ZVT devices online to the DR mainframe, and off you go. the very important point is that production replication continues while you're doing your DR testing. So literally, with one click, you import the database, bring the devices online, you're ready to test. Meanwhile, your replication continues uninterrupted. There's no action at the end of your test. The next time you come back for a test, you simply repeat the process. So there's not even a cleanup process that you need to go through. So it's quite efficient when you're talking about DR testing with the ZVT system, okay? Okay, use cases. I wanted to highlight a couple of customers. I'm going to ask for Glenn's help here on the second one as well as Katie's. The first use case is actually CSI themselves. And I'll turn it over to Katie, but I wanted to highlight that as a partner of ours, it's really neat that they actually invested in DR as a service with PSR and the ZVT system. So this is an example of the partnership at work where all three companies work together, and CSI is actually using ZVT for their production backup work and using PSR DR as a service. So with that, I'm going to ask Katie to kind of review the situation, and then we'll talk about it graphically as well. Katie?
Yeah, definitely. So yes, we successfully migrated from a traditional IBM 3490 and 3590 tape backup system to an almost fully automated virtual tape system by partnering with Optica and PSR. We have a somewhat complex environment comprised of ZVM, ZOS, and ZVSD, of course, and we were able to design and deploy a practical and cost-effective solution in very little time. By leveraging our relationship with Optica ZVT and with over 8 terabytes of storage space, we now have the ability to back up massive amounts of critical business data on site while instantly replicating that data to our off-site storage partner within PSR. All of this has saved us significant time and money by removing the need for expensive tapes and the dedicated labor needed to babysit those antiquated tape systems. In addition to the immediate rewards of the migration, we have also found ancillary benefits from this change. Now development teams are able to instantly access huge libraries of online backups and deploy images as needed to quickly replicate development and testing environments. This has, of course, sped up our ability to launch new products and test customer configurations in on-site environments. Considering these times and with the onset of the virus, our business was largely unaffected, having removed the need for on-site manual intervention in the backup system. I would definitely suggest, and I'm sure everyone, those at CSI that did some of this work, Juan and Don and Pat, for anyone looking at for a near immediate return on investment, we definitely recommend this backup solution and the configuration for everyone's mainframe environment.
Thank you, Katie. So this represents what Katie just described. This is the final solution graphically. You can see on the left side the 3000i, ZVT 3000i is located in CSI's production data center in Ohio, and they're replicating to PSR's data center in Canton, Massachusetts. What's interesting about their environment and how CSI chose to do their replication, they're doing VTN replication, so it's between the virtual tape engines, as you can see, but they're doing a combination of asynchronous replication and synchronous replication. So that's one of the things I wanted to highlight. They're actually leveraging synchronous replication for their VM backups. They just decided that was the most efficient way to do it, and the amount of data that they're actually replicating does not adversely affect performance of the job. So they're using a nice combination of async replication and synchronous replication. So, and they're taking advantage, you can see, of the multi-tenant, what we'll call the multi-tenant ZVT system that PSR is invested in. So Glenn's going to tell you a little bit more about that in a couple of slides here.
Sean, you should also mention on that there's no dedicated bandwidth there, right? How we're doing that replication. So there wasn't any costly or, high-speed bandwidth required to do that.
That's a great point. So I'm going to, thank you, Glenn. I'm going to turn it over to you to highlight the second use case.
Yeah, so this one is a deployment using the 5000 Flex system. This was a long-time customer, DR customer. And the only physical tape they were using were 3592 EO5 drives. We were already their DR site for the mainframe, and they had cage space at our DR site, and they were replicating all their open systems. And we just had a conversation that, well, why can't we tap into that? And that's where the Optica solution fit in really well. So this is a 5,000 flex deployment, and they just tapped into that existing replication that they were doing already, and the mainframe just tagged right along with it. They just added a small amount of capacity to cover what they needed for the mainframe. And what I've come to find out over the years is when open systems people ask for more disks, they seem to get it automatically, unlike those of us in the mainframe world. So they just got it approved, and it went right through. So, they greatly increased their RPO as part of this. And, and certainly the recovery time and just the ease of the resolution. But they didn't get any issues in the implementation. They were already doing replication. They were doing all of their open systems replication for DR, and this just became a part of that overall process. So if you go to the next page, John, there's a picture of that deployment. They're replicating between two TrueNAS devices. And they do have dedicated bandwidth, but that bandwidth was already there in place doing all their open replication. So in their case, they bought two 5,000 flex systems, one in the production site, one in the DR site. And really it's been a seamless deployment and not a single hiccup since they've been in for almost 3 years now with this solution. The next slide here shows some of the multi-tenant capabilities at PSR, and you'll see some of the various deployments in addition to the one I just showed you. We have customers who have 3000i internal disks replicating to us, ISN replications for some of the larger environments, really all across the map. But the main part I'd want to show here is our replication as well down to our DR site. So anybody who is doing DR with us and replicating to us, we're creating a tertiary copy of that. So that's what that replication is between our PSR prod to PSR DR. So we create a tertiary copy of anybody who's replicated to us through that multi-tenant device. Our offerings allow us to, if you think about what this is depicting here, that customer one only had to obtain a single 3000i system. They didn't need to buy a dedicated secondary system. They're part of our multi-tenant environment. So that's what makes this very cost effective for VSE customers, and we've been able to make that deploy favorably versus physical tape. And those customers can acquire that, they can purchase it, or they even have options if they want to sign up for DR. We would blend the cost of that into their DR so they can avoid a capital expense. It's part of the DR rate. So lots of flexible deployment, lots of flexible acquisition models. At my site, we have deduplication, we've got encryption, encryption at rest, so it's a very flexible deployment that we've been able to implement here, and fully tested, and has worked out well.
Glenn, if you don't mind, I'd like to add to your comments. The multi-tenant ZVT system that you've invested in and that a lot of your customers are leveraging for DR as a service offers some very interesting security features. And of course, customers' data and their tape devices are isolated, so the technology allows you to do that by customer. So customers only access tapes in their own libraries and file system. Okay, so there's no security consideration there. So everything's locked down by customer and by customer library. So
yes, and that replication is all by customer implemented connections, be they dedicated, be they some kind of VPN connection that they control. It's really they push it to us. They control it. We don't manage that network for them. They manage their own network and maintain control.
It's been a tremendous solution that a lot of customers, and increasingly a number of customers, are taking advantage of. So thank you for that insight, Glenn. Much appreciated. Okay, I wanted to wrap it up here with just a summary of the benefits that we've talked about, and then I think we're going to have some time, a few minutes, for some questions. So what I hope we've demonstrated and shown you today is that we can collectively offer you an affordable and flexible solution with all the modern features. We have tight integration across our organizations that starts with the sales organizations all the way through engineering and support. We work very well together. We all have a customer focus, and that's what's so unique about the three organizations working together on your behalf. It's a turnkey process, as hopefully we've demonstrated, all the way through to the services delivery, design, implementation, migration of your data, and skills transfer. So we make it as easy as possible on you. We offer that exceptional service and support. And if you haven't experienced the support of CSI or PSR or Optica, it might seem a little bit shallow to hear us talk about it. We hope you have a chance to experience it, because we take a lot of pride in that. And it's how we've all, as companies, been successful over decades, is making it a customer-focused approach. So you can expect that, and we expect that of ourselves when you are a customer of any of the companies. We offer a flexibility across multiple deployment models, as Glenn just highlighted. On-prem SDR as a service, fully hosted, whatever your requirements and economic situation requires can be covered. We make it easy for you. And then end-to-end, of course, not only virtual tape, but disk solution and IBM Z solution, as well as tape management from CSI and BIM Epic. So we feel like we have a unique dedication to you, to the VM VSE customer. There's not a lot of that dedication that remains, but this partnership certainly does. And we're not going anywhere. We're here for you and offer you a unique set of skills and experience. So we hope you'll take advantage of that. So thanks again for being here as we conclude the presentation. And Bristol, I think we have some time for a few questions.
Perfect. And we did get a couple through our chat box. So I'm going to start with those real quick. The first one, option for virtual tape files encrypted at rest, default, add-on, and cost.
This is Mike. Yeah, it's a licensed feature. Encryption in flight is included in both the replication options, and it's a separate license feature at rest on both the ZVT, on all those ZVT models. So the customer can configure it the way that they want to. And today, what we're typically seeing is people want everything encrypted, so we're typically seeing customers deploy encryption at rest and in flight.
Thank you. The next one that I see, what is the capacity of the virtual 3592 tapes? Our 3592 tape capacity is 300 gigabytes.
Hey, Chris Olson, you want to just take that one? I think you were going to answer that one individually.
Sure. The virtual tapes on the ZVT, you configure a maximum size, and it doesn't directly correlate to a physical tape cartridge necessarily, although it can. So you can configure 3590 tapes as 300 gigabytes, or you can go up to a maximum of 2 terabytes per tape. So you can get some, you can end up using fewer tapes by configuring the max size on the ZVT virtual tapes to be larger than what your physical capacity currently is. Or you can configure them the same way. It's kind of a, what is your best practice in your site? And we take a look at that and make recommendations based on what you're currently doing and what your goals are moving forward.
Thanks, Chris.
Mm-hmm.
This is Mike. I think we had one other question was, Glenn, maybe this is best directed at you, and then we can wrap it up. How should we think about choosing between on-premise, DR as a service, and fully hosted options? What are the trade-offs that you've seen customers kind of grapple with, Glenn?
Well, they look at when they're choosing between on-premise or in-house, the cost of building out their own DR site or what they're doing on the open side today. So, for example, if they're already replicating to their DR site, that might lead to a solution with a flex solution like I discussed in the example. If they're all physical tape today and really not doing any open replication, that might lead towards a more DR as a service model. And then really as part of all that is hosted options can fit into this. And, we've used the Optica solution as a migration tool as well. So we've had a client who started off as a DR as a service client, and we were able to use that same replication to migrate them to a hosted solution. So when they're hosted at our data center, not only do they continue to get all the benefits of Optica replication, but they also get global mirror at the disk level down to our DR site. So it really depends on what their circumstances are, what the future of the mainframe is. I've yet to meet the VSE client who doesn't tell me that they think they're getting off, and then we're all here, 10 years later. So it's really about, having an honest look at what the environment is and understanding what to do with the physical tape that you may have. So we've seen all options used. Some customers choose to take a from this point forward model. They don't migrate the physical tape. They might keep an older physical tape drive in the data center, and they just go forward with virtual tape replication. And we've had other ones who want to migrate all of their physical tape. So we copy everything out and all in between. So that's all part of the analysis process, working with the folks at Optica with tape studies, and we work at coming up what the better solution is.
Perfect. Thanks, Glenn. I think we're at the top of the hour.
We are, and if anyone has any additional questions, please feel free to email webinars@share.org, and we will make sure to reach out to our panelists to get your questions answered. And with that concludes today's webcast. I want to thank everyone for attending today. Thank you to all of our speakers and panelists today. Please take a moment to complete the quick feedback survey on your screen. We really appreciate your input. Again, this recording will be available on our Share website soon. And one last time, if you have any questions, please email webinars@share.org. Thank you again, and enjoy your day.